Good morning. We're live. Thank you for your patience. Have you ever been spending the morning in your private time and get caught up in a book and you just lose track of time, which I did this morning? Apologize for being 4 minutes late to launch our week, um, doing something really exciting. Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with you today. We're going to give everybody just a couple of moments to jump on before we take off in one of the most critical scrolls of all 10, because if we aren't engaged in this one, very little will matter. So we're going to have some fun getting into the principles that govern persisting until we succeed, and see if we can't dissect some of this and make some sense out of it for you so that it can serve you more effectively. Now, last Monday, we took on scroll number 2. I'll greet this day with love in my heart, it is the single most important, as Og says, it's the most important principle in all ventures. Love, agape love, that heightened level of awareness of truly seeing a human being, seeing them without bias or prejudice, and connecting with them and being fully present with them, curious, if you will, interested, and listening, not to respond, but to understand. And when someone feels understood, they finally feel safe, and their wall can come down and their cooperation and energy flood out to you. Wonderful way to start filling that hole in our soul and helping us become WHOLE. Now, at the end of that scroll, I just wanted to emphasize, and most of all, I will love myself. And then he gives us the guidance. For when I do, I will zealously guard what I take into my mind, my heart, my body, and my soul. That's how we love ourselves. Now, once we are beginning to understand this process, it's no longer about us and our doubts and our fears. Loving ourselves is zealously watching what comes into our mind, our heart, our body, and our soul. And then we are focused on another human being because we're now WHOLE. We're more whole, so we can show up for the person. Okay, now we're in this world of doing, of creating dreams and making them happen, and we get some great advice. He wants to rein in our fantasy. We have a tendency to go into the future and get really committed to outcomes and then hold life hostage to them. It's not happening fast enough. This is not what I expected. Just be with me this morning. Have you had an UG this morning? I had one on a stock trade this morning. I woke up and went, right? We have those moments because there was an expectation. I create them too. We all do. Every entrepreneurial mind has this ability to vividly visualize and effortlessly think. We will create them. But Og is reining us in so that we can be a little bit more deliberate and intentional in the creation of our dreams. He makes it clear right up front that in the Orient, now I haven't found where in the Orient they do this, but it's okay. It's the principle. In the Orient, young bulls are tested in a certain manner. They're allowed to attack a picador who pricks them with a lance. And the bravery of each bull is tested based on its ability to charge in spite of the sting of the blade. And so it is with us. In the world in which we live, we are being tested for the arena. We're not in it yet. Everybody got that? We're not in it yet. Can we withstand the stings that come from the picador, the tests of life? Can we charge through in spite of those things? Because if we choose not to, then we get to play small. We get to receive the
the wounds of failure and the bruises of failure and the wounds of mediocrity, excuse me, when the baseball bat of life just takes its swings at us, because we're not charging through, we're just taking the blows, because those are the choices. We get to play small and take the blows, or we get to push through into the arena. That is such a powerful comment. Then he takes us down at the bottom. I was not delivered to this world in defeat, nor does failure course in my veins. I am not a sheep waiting to be prodded by my shepherd. Now, in my belief system, there is a shepherd, and I'm one of his sheep, and I follow him with absolute trust. But I don't want to be prodded by him in order to do what's right or do what's good. It says, I am a lion, and I refuse to talk, to walk, to sleep with the sheep. I will hear not those who weep and complain, for their disease is contagious. That's an invitation for us to be careful who we hang out with. Because there are those that we can just wallow in misery, commiseration. We want to get out of that space and be with those who challenge us, who inspire us, who empower us, who encourage us. Let them join the sheep, the negative nannies. The slaughterhouse of failure is not my destiny. The slaughterhouse of failure. Bob talked about this in scroll 1. If the failure of all of those were piled in a pile, they would cast a shadow on the pyramids. Is this to be discouraging? No, it's to be realistic. And at the core of this, before we go to the next paragraph, at the core, at the center of persisting is knowing why. If we don't know why, we have no purpose. Now, we've talked about not getting a why too big. Paul talked about that in his Disrupt Your Week. Don't get too big of a why, because the bigger the why doesn't drive the action. No, if we're in avoidance of everything that it takes to get there, excuse me, the biggest why in the world won't move us. But the why I'm talking about is what we actually want to create. I want to create that. And I would ask you this morning to make sure that that has some intrinsic value in it and not just materialistic value. I want that house. I want that car. I want these things. I have nice things. They don't do that for you. That's not what they're there for. And if you have them to serve and bless and lift and share, they can have purpose, but in and of themselves, they have no purpose. The purpose comes when we're in service and lifting and building and blessing humanity and making this a better planet to be on. Now we got a purpose. Or if we use our things to do that for people, then they have a purpose. And then there's purpose in the creation of them. But purpose is critical. Absent purpose, there's no reason to persist. Everybody got that? If I don't have a purpose, why am I persisting? Because someone told me to, or because I'm afraid if I don't? Let's stop for a moment and say, what is my purpose? Why am I seeking those things? What purpose will they have? Why am I wanting to serve at that level? Now that has purpose. Do I have purpose? Because without purpose, there is no such thing as persistence. Those stabs from that picador, those pricks, hurt too much. We just won't do it. Because we go to the next paragraph and he says, the prizes of life are at the end of each journey. The end of each journey, not near the beginning. In other words, I keep my eye on the goal above my head. I'll ignore the obstacles at my feet. Sometimes those are people. Where dry desert ends, green grass grows. We're in a dry desert of creation. And it's not given to me to know how many steps are necessary in order to reach my goal. That's my purpose. Failure, I may still encounter at the 1,000th step. yet success hides behind the next bend in the road. Never will I know how close it lies unless I turn the corner. Who would do this? 1,000 steps. Most people would quit at 100 or 50 or 20 if they don't have a purpose. Let's examine that purpose this morning as we're examining the importance of persisting. Because once we have a purpose, we now know that we're going to focus on the millimeters of life. The next step and then the next step. They'll speed up with time. But if we're not focused here, that will never happen. Our purpose will never be accomplished if we let these little obstacles keep stopping us. Og compared it to felling an oak tree. Now, we're not into killing trees, okay, if anybody's worried, but it's a great concept. I will consider each day's effort. We're living in the now, taking what we have, creating the most we can with it and celebrating. Creating the most we can and celebrating. We're not living in the future. We're clear where we're headed. That's our purpose for taking this next step. We're going to henceforth as one blow of my blade against a mighty oak. The first blow may cause not a tremor in the wood. Ever been in that moment? Nor the second, nor the third. Each blow of itself may be trifling and seem of no consequence. Yet from childish swipes, the oak will eventually tumble. So it will be with my efforts of today. I just want to turn this and let you see all my notes. I've really studied this scroll. It's such an important piece for us because we dive into our purpose and we're focused on the millimeters. And if we don't understand this principle of taking these steps, because today, it's like we plan in years, we live in moments, right? So we've got an idea where we want to be a year from now, and we're living in the moments, and the moments aren't working. We can lose enthusiasm just like that, unless we're clear on our purpose. So just know there'll be days when nothing really moves forward very far. So you get to celebrate. I got up, I had my morning time, I did my actions, I planted seeds. I can't see into the future other than I know that when they start to sprout, when I start to harvest, I will then look back at today, grateful that I took the time to plant that seed. Can you imagine the farmer? We talked about farming before. Here's the farmer who spent all day plowing, and he gets done and there's no harvest. Of course there's no harvest. He understands that one must plow first, then one must plant, and then one must fertilize, and one must water. See the pieces? If you know where you are in the process, you're okay. There's the mighty oak. First blow doesn't even tremor. Second, not another tremor. Third one, not a tremor. But there are three of them. Now there's a fourth one and a fifth one. And eventually, the oak will tumble. Then he says, I will be likened unto a raindrop. Now look at these analogies. A raindrop which washes away a mountain. The ant who devours a tiger. The star which brightens the earth. The slave who builds a pyramid. I will build my castle. Now, speaking of that purpose, one brick at a time. For I know that small attempts, repeated, will complete any undertaking. Now, David Thoreau talked about we build castles in the sky, right? And then we try to move into them. It's okay. Keep your castle. But it's time to build a foundation underneath it. And that's what Og's talking about here. I will build my castle one brick at a time. For I know that small attempts repeated will complete any undertaking. I have that circled and lines around it. Small attempts repeated. Millimeters. will complete any task. Then I'm going to remove from my mind the words of failure and defeat. And if defeat comes, I'm going to work on, or failure or misery comes, I'm going to work on in defeat. I'm going to keep working and toiling. I'll keep my eye on the goal above my head. I'll ignore the obstacles at my feet. For a dry desert ends, green grass grows. So that's a powerful, powerful principle. We don't live in the dream. We don't wallow in the misery. We focus on the millimeters in the desert, because eventually green grass will grow. We'll harvest the green grass. And guess what? Then we get to go back through the process all over again if, in fact, we want to maximize all that we were meant to be. Phil Stoutsbury Michaels, The Tools, two psychoanalysts said, to ask for this to stop, this pain, the dry desert, is to ask for our education to stop. Why would we do that? Well, because it hurts. Because I'm in pain. Because I'm discouraged. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Okay? Pick up the pieces, take what is, move it a millimeter and celebrate, a millimeter and celebrate. You can pull this back together. I go back to that time in my life when I had amassed millions of dollars and the real estate market collapsed in Southern California, and we lost it all. And I'm left with $1 million in debt, and I'm the guarantor of all the corporate lines of credit. 10 years paying that back. I still remember that day that it was paid back. What a celebration. But the truth is, to do what we're doing right now in this moment, there were some things I needed to learn. I reflected on that this weekend. Those 10 years were in the prime of a person's earning years. And I'm paying back debt. And we reflected where we moved to, the spouses our children have married, the grandchildren we have, the experiences, Og Mandino and his principles, Habit Finder, all the clients we've been able to coach and speeches we've been able to give and lives we've been able to impact. Would I miss all of that to go back to 1989 and 90 and not have that burden and just been able to continue building? I don't think so. Don't think so. Chad Hymas, my dear friend, who's quadriplegic, if you could have your legs and arms back, would you? And he said, not if I had to miss all the places I've been in this world and all the people I've been able to impact. No, wouldn't go back. Can't go back anyway, but he wouldn't go back. You may be right now on the doorstep of one of those moments. Chad got crushed by a 2,000-pound bale of hay. I got crushed by a terrible economy. I'll take mine. It was devastating. Ripped out my proud heart, rebuilt me in ways that I had not anticipated. Glad I didn't quit. Wow. Don't quit. Don't quit. You may be in a really dry desert right now, but keep pushing forward, because at the end of that dry desert, there will be green grass. It is a promise. So long as you persist until you succeed and you're clear on why you are for that purpose. He said, each obstacle I'll consider as a mere detour to my goal and a challenge to my profession. And I've got this circled. I will persist and develop my skills. Wow, I'm sorry. As the mariner develops his, by learning to ride out the wrath of each storm. If you're in a storm, just buckle down the hatches, if you will. Put on the raincoat. Let's go for it. Let's move forward. It's blinding right now. It can be. The rain, it could just be blinding. But this is where you learn. This is when your skill set is sharpened. And then the last secret. At the end of each day, whether it be a good one or a bad one, I'll do one more thing. One more thing. I'll make that one more phone call. No matter how the day has been, good or bad, I will not end on a failure. I won't end. And he says this, never will I allow any day to end with a failure. Thus, back to the seeds, I will plant the seed of tomorrow's success and gain an insurmountable advantage, underlined here, over those who cease their labor at a prescribed time. When others cease to struggle, then mine will begin, and my harvest will be full. Not today's harvest, the eventual harvest. So, as he closes this scroll, so long as there is breath in me, that long will I persist. For now I know one of the greatest principles of success. If I persist long enough, I will win. This is a gritty scroll, really gritty scroll. Next week, we're going to go into I am nature's greatest miracle, and we get to focus on our intrinsic worth and our desire to take what we have and create the most we can with it so we fulfill the magnitude of our own creation. But in preparation for that, let's see where we are today. Let's examine the purpose and let's persist. If all we do is plant seeds today, if all we do is plow rows today, if all we do is fertilize or water, let us see it for what it is. Because over time, it will reap a harvest. And when it does, we'll gain greater and greater levels of confidence in our ability to create. Bless you if you're on a dark night. But there is light. And it only comes by persisting. Thanks, everyone. Have a blessed week.